distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up, family? My name is Brother Ray. We'd like to welcome everyone to the BK Mackey's History Club, also known as the BK History Club. We meet here every other Wednesday in honor of Bill Mackey, Amos Wilson, Brother Louis Ray Rivera, El Haj Malik El-Shabazz, late great friend of Mackey's Brother Hassan, the great attorney at war, Alton Maddox, warrior comrade, Minister Khalid, Gil Noble, Runoko Rashidi, Professor George Simmons, Ivan Van Sertima, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, and all the historians that gave up fame and fortune. They didn't have to go the route. They could have went another route, studying all hours of the night. You never want to forget these people, because they didn't have to go the route. Miss Leola Maddox, and I'm always gonna salute her and the United African Movement, because Miss Leola drove very moderately new and old vehicle, and it had a lot of miles on it because she drove from Teaneck and Paterson, New Jersey, every Wednesday. Rain, sleep, snow, heat, ate her dinner at the UAM because she believed in bringing people together and bringing speakers and having conversation. And she paid a big price, but she made that trip. So in honor of the United African Movement in Leola and Alton and all the people, we want to salute her and never want to forget her. So the people that came out, give yourself a great big hand for coming out and always supporting, because the lecture goes on YouTube, Rumble, Big Shoot, so the historians can give their say, because it's not a lot of avenues where the people come and share. And in this day of staying home, you have Zoom and you have the other things. If you live far away, you're able to tune in. So we're going to move the camera over to the Amos Collection. The Amos Collection is to help us follow in African World Info Systems, to continue the work of Amos. We have Blueprint for Black Power, the psychology of self-hatred and self-defeat for the reclamation of the African mind. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but every African needs help in the reclamation of the mind. So that's Amos's classic. So Babu finished it. The psychodynamics of black self-annihilation in service of white domination, black on black violence. And whether we know it or not, every single one of us is controlled and dominated by white folks for the things we do. And it's going to take 1,000 years to get it back. Awakening the natural genius of black children issues of manhood in black and white, which is a big problem in this 25th century, African-centered consciousness versus the New World Order, and we are definitely in the New World Order, the Great Reset, and a lot of things is happening. The falsification of African consciousness, and we have a lot of falsies around that's getting rich off of keeping us in place. And S.K. Damian, The Distorted Truths, The Bastardization of African Cosmology. So those are the books that we want to support Sababu, because he's working hard, he's burning the midnight oil, he's coming out with another book in honor of Amos, and he's burning the midnight oil and the funds are low, and I gotta give it to him because everybody mentions Amos's name, and Amos this, and Amos that, and Sababu is on fumes. So he's working hard, and it's a real struggle because the neighborhood is being gentrified, while everybody on Eastern Parkway is shaking their behind with all them phony politicians and bootlicks. The Caribbean community is being gentrified. Bed-Stuy is done. It's already gone. It's no hope. The black vote means nothing because objectification and black push-out, so they don't have to cater to us. They don't need us. They have our replacements. So you can shake your behind on there with all them people on Eastern Parkway. We're supposed to have plenty political power, and we have none. They can't hold on to their apartments. When the lease runs out, it's not being renewed. So that's my point of view. So we're going to have some books going on, and these books are for the listening public, for the Zoom, for people to buy off Amazon, purchase for yourself. And one of the best books that I don't want to forget is Louis Ray Rivera, Jazz in Jail, in honor of Louis Ray, who left us too soon. And when Mackie passed away, me, Hassan, Brother Colvin, we had to leave 851 St. Mark's where Professor Mackie lived at, and we came down here to this place, and we would sit down here amongst ourselves, Calvin and everybody, and Louis Ray came to the rescue, and he was coming down here doing the lectures. Of course, he took over, and it didn't cost us a dime. And he would talk, and he would talk, and we would walk him home, and he only lived 4 blocks. And he would talk for another hour and a half, come out of Marshall Project. I want to thank Louis Ray for what he did, and I never want to forget this brother. Good man. Also, in honor of Dr. Ben, Black Man of the Nile. And this is an old publication, and Dr. Ben did all the work, newspaper clippings, on how they built those great dynasties, what the African had to go through, the invaders, the jackals, the grave robbers, the small hats, the Arabs, the Indians, and all the people that came into the land of the black and conquered it. The statues. Dr. Ben was just magnificent. And he puts everything, the language, which was taken, our culture, which was taken. We want to thank Dr. Ben, and this book is going to be a classic because they want to change everything. And if they can get all the people out of Africa, all the resources is theirs. If they could conquer and recolonize, all the resources is theirs. So what's happening in the Sahel region, as Dr. Lewis states, and what's going on, victory will come. And it's going to take a long time because they're not planning on leaving without a fight. They just ain't going to leave like that after conquering and controlling for thousands of years. These people are not going to leave just like that. Africans or Americans, Black identity crisis. in New York City, 1784 to 1861. Everywhere from Seneca Village, upstate New York, where we lived, the 5 Points, City Hall, Wall Street, where they sold us like cattle in stock, hung us from the lampposts. Black identity crisis has been a rough road for us. So this book talks about it, and I want to thank the African Echoes family with Brother Trust. It's readily available, Lisa M. Alexander. Reparations, compensation, slavery in the Caribbean and Latin American countries. America was not the only place. It was everywhere they dropped us off and whooped us and put us in hot oil and burned us and boiled us and cut our hands off for the rubber. It's global. So talk about it everywhere. In Brazil, everywhere, talk about it. What happened to us as a people. The Jews say everything about what happened to them. And when we start saying it, it's always a goddamn problem. They dropped us off everywhere. And before they broke us in the Caribbean islands, and here we can't even get together because they done got us split up. They broke us in before they took us to the Americans. But then they just got disgusting and put us in the bowels of them ships. And the great warriors jumped over. And then they just took it straight across the Atlantic and got the nerve to call it the transatlantic slave trade. My ass. The European slave trade. It was Europeans, it was Arabs, Portuguese that did us in. Without sanctuary, the atrocities in South Carolina, in Sumter, Mississippi, the hangings, the postcards, without sanctuary. Where they hung you from the tree, without sanctuary, the railroad crossings, the burial grounds where they don't even talk about, where they just did us in, the slave codes, and all the information that's readily hidden, but you could bring up everything about other people. Hanging from the bridge in Tennessee. The dogs, the overseers. When you go down to the Black Wax Museum in Baltimore, and the Don is going to clean that place up, because anybody got the nerve to say that Baltimore's in good shape is out of their mind. How you going to say Baltimore's in good shape when the Jews in Hollywood got the nerve to come up with the most disgusting movie to make you think nothing's good out of Baltimore, with the drugs and the abandoned buildings and this and that movie called The Wire that everybody looked at. I've never heard anybody else say anything good about that place. And they got the nerve to say it's getting better. It's not getting better. And Brother Darren Muhammad will tell you. So they better clean it up. In honor of Cynthia McKinney, when China sneezes from the coronavirus lockdown and global economics, in honor of Cynthia, in my opinion, the only one that cared about the people of Georgia, not them people that's down there now talking all that nonsense. Cynthia McKinney was the only one that stood up. And on orders from whites, blacks jumped in there, and them phonies down there is disgusting. How the U.S. creates shithole countries. Another book by Cynthia McKinney. So when Donald Trump talk about S-hole countries, you better buy this book and find out who's the culprit behind it. Where I live at in Bedford-Stuyvesant, it looked like a third world country. They all on the streets in mattresses, 5,000 motorbikes. It's disgusting. Sleeping on mattresses. Me and my friend was walking from Fulton and Franklin across the Bedford, and the rats was running across. And our African brothers and sisters was laying on dirty mattresses with all these bikes and everything. So America is becoming that under the people that's in there now, like it or not. Everybody is smoking weed. The white people are smoking weed. It's legal. They selling it all over the place. They smoking it in front of police. The police can't stop them. They're lighting up. They all on the block. And blacks are selling it. Whites are selling it. They got cannabis shops. It's one of the most disgusting. And in this book, Lyndon LaRouche talks about who's behind it. A gentleman by the name of George Soros. It's one of the disgusting, and nobody's saying anything about it. It's disgusting. Apartheid South Africa, unspoken alliance. Israel's secret pact with apartheid South Africa. And whatever you say, whatever you think, the Jews control South Africa with all that gold. They control it hook, line, and sinker. So I want to thank Dr. Lewis in this book, Unspoken Alliance. Our good friend Tyreen Wright, Booker T. Everybody talks about Booker T being something, but if you got a problem with what she says about Booker T, when we bring her here, you can ask her any kind of question you want. But to me, Booker T was a bad dude. So I want to thank Sister Tyreen Wright. Anything, you read it and you don't like it, and you got a problem with it, when she come here, you log on and you bring up your opinion about it. The CIA manufacturing of a president. Barack Hussein Obama. Bomb. Phony. Worst thing that could have happened to black people was this crumb bump. And he has destroyed a section of the black community in Chicago to build the Obama Center. He ain't no good. And if you got a problem with it, contact Wayne Mansfield and talk to him. The destruction of black civilization. I want to thank the African Echoes family, Brother Truss, and them gladiators out of Asbury Park and Newark. We did not have it together in the land of the black. Everything wasn't on the glory. It was a lot of problems, the same way it's a lot of problems now. Well, Chancellor Williams went beyond the call of duty and talked about all the problems we made, those great warriors. So you wonder how we're going to get it right. We might not never get it right. But if you read Chancellor Williams and you log on to the African Echoes study group, your mind might be reprogrammed, and you'll find out the mistakes we made from being the great warriors to depending on other countries and other races to protect us. And they not leaving. They're getting paid natural resources, and they not never gonna leave. When Mr. Howard region get themselves together, they're not leaving. You think they're gonna get up and leave? You're out your mind. Because they're getting paid. But Chancellor Williams went into the problems we made from the Arab slave trade, which nobody talks about, to all the mistakes we made, the Portuguese and all the other folks from Europe and England coming in. I want to thank Truss and the African Echoes family for at least trying to reprogram and get some clearance on what's going on. Ayo Kamati, in his classic blockbuster, Jews are the problem and the psychology of the Jew. And he's talking about the higher ups, the big boys, the ones that bring presidents to the wall. And the president's got to kiss the wall, from Donald Trump on down to Obama, to Bush, to Reagan. They all got to come and kiss the wall. So I want to thank Ayo on his book, and it's a 1-2 punch. So no matter what, they have to kiss the wall. George Soros, it's funny, the Jews never talk about what he did in the concentration camps at 13 years old. And read the book. How he took the gold and all the stuff out of the people in the concentration camps. But they don't have a problem with that. The man behind the curtain. And they got a passage in here on how all of a sudden out of the clear blue sky, this reparations movement is moving in full force. And how now we got people going against it who don't want to talk about reparations coming from their country, but they want to come to America and talk about reparations and already foundational black Americans and all that. This book is titled The World's Greatest Investor. The Lifetimes and Trading Secrets of the World's Greatest Investor. He's dirty. And he's almost 100 years old. And him and Hoffman and Bloomberg and the Gold, his son is young. And his son is taking over. And he got all them Democrats in his pocket. From mayoral candidates and everybody. Because he got so much money. Read about this guy, Hoffman and Bloomberg, and all the other company that's controlling everything. And they never go after him. Well, Donald Trump is going after him. Good, bad, or indifference, whether you like him or not. Because nobody else said he's bringing him up. So I'm going to give the Don a +1 on this. Whether you like it or not, doesn't mean no. Capitalism on the ventilator. The deaths from the CO-19. The medical pharmaceutical killing machine. And when you get this book, you're going to find out how much money is being made. And I'm having a hard time reading it with all the problems I know about. Thank God for Dr. Lewis telling us vax versus unvax, so they're not finished. Thousands of deaths, blood clots, and they still coming up with it. Say what you want to say about Kennedy. Read his books, and if you got a problem, talk to him. Rand Paul, The Great Deception. Down the rabbit hole. Dirty Fauci. Every time I turn around, I got to go to another funeral. A union member who I knew for years. Bad sister, Latino. And one thing about our Latino brothers and sisters from Puerto Rico, boy, they would get behind her in West Farms Depot and the Coliseum Depot, and they backed her no matter what. Because she was from Puerto Rico. Gone. Dead. And if you got in trouble, she don't care. She would go beyond. Big Sister Gladys. Bad sister. Another funeral I got to go to. And nobody want to put the cause. Sudden death. Epidemic of sudden death syndrome. Edward Down. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. A beautiful sister, newscaster. Dead. 42 years old, in the prime of her life. And I look at the comments and they told me she had a heart problem. 42? Come on. The young players, the football players, athletes. You got a problem? Talk to Edward Down. Used to work for BlackRock. Youngsters. They were so young, they were the big boys on the block. You know what happens when you're young. When you're young, you got it all. Gone. And you don't want to connect the dots. Gone. So many goddamn funerals, and everybody talking this nonsense. All right, something else. Naomi, the Pfizer papers. They forced Pfizer to come out with the Pfizer papers, and Pfizer wanted to stop this and hold the information for 75 years. Now, they got Pfizer to force them to do this. And I ordered the Moderna papers. And if you go on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Simon & Schuster, all the big book boys, and you put in the Moderna papers, and Naomi Wolf and all of them, they canceled it. You cannot buy the book. They did not want it to come out, so it's going to be a long fight. They stopped it. Go on, Google it, the Moderna papers about the company Moderna and its problems. And that book is supposed to be here. And they stopped it. You cannot get the book. And one person had the book on eBay. I don't know how he got it. He wants $375 for it. Vaccine headline. And the Surgeon General in Florida said he's going to cancel mandated vaccines for kids in Florida. Big up to DeSantis and his brother down there. This is a timeline of vaccines. Timeline. The chronology of vaccinations. 1913, 1775, the Flexner Report. We wasn't even born in vaccines. Different viruses. Get this book. The reason why I'm so mad because I got to go to another funeral. And her kids are devastated. Because just like that, she's gone. These are some events and programs for the listening audience and the people that's going to tune in to all the lectures from the BK History Club. Thank God we have Dr. Lewis, who lets us know. We got Thorough Black Talk with Tad, Keisha, Sister Mama, a.k.a. Marcia, Sister Brooke, Brother Black, Tad, hottest show on the East Coast. They'll be on tomorrow, and they're getting into some hot topics. Our Blog Talk family with Sister Filet, Brother Lumumba, El Pollinator, Brother Moses, Sister Tanisha, California Connection. I've been missing the show, very sorry, but some things have been coming up. But I'll be back on, and I miss you. I've been doing something with some events. So that's Sister Empress in our Philadelphia Connection. Ayo Kamati, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio with Brother Muhammad. That comes on every Monday. Blockbuster program. From 9 to 10 you have Dr. Haru, and he has testimonies, and he's selling his products, and he has books. And one thing I like about the brother, he says, I don't care, you don't have to buy a damn thing from me. You don't have to buy nothing from me. But he has the books and the studies to back up what he's saying. And he comes on from 9 to 10. That's Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. Dr. Haru comes on 9 to 10, and then Ayo Kamati comes on 10 to 11. He's in Ghana right now. And he went to Burkina Faso and everything. So we want to thank Ayo, and you can call in to both programs. But it's a pamphlet that he has that you could buy and get to study. So we want to thank Brother Anthony Mohammed and Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. That's Mondays, 10 o'clock a.m. And you can call in.
What time?
91.95.1, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio. Just put it on the Google, Sankofa Revolutionary Radio, and it will come on. Our Baltimore connection, Brother Darren Muhammad, stayed in the city, and he's getting in on that fraud, Westmore. He's telling it because he's a phony, and we want to thank Brother Darren for his information that he's bringing to the community. That's Saturdays at 12 o'clock, and sometimes Wednesdays and Thursdays toss-up. But Darren, I want to give him big credit. He's the Steve Coakley of the 25th century. Big ups to Darren Muhammad. Every Tuesday, your Immunity Project with Dr. Aline. That comes on at 3 o'clock. The live program is on Zoom at 3 o'clock. You can listen to him on California Radio and get the link. But the live program comes on at 3 o'clock. He worked in Harlem Hospital. And you can ask him any question you want. You can put your question in the chat and ask him anything. Then he gives you a rebroadcast at 7. But you can't ask no questions. The 3 o'clock program, you ask the questions, and he will answer you. Anything that you want to know. But see, one thing about the Mackey's group, you can come down here and ask Dr. Lewis anything you want. All you got to do is come on down. And Dr. Lewis is here. African Echoes, Trust Graham and the African Echoes family out of Newark, New Jersey, they have a Friday study group that's a blockbuster, and they're doing The Psychology of Self-Hatred, and I know when they finish that, Sababu's coming up with another book. But not only do Trust and the crew, True and them give you that blockbuster, they give you another doubleheader Saturday at 1:30, the Know Thyself study group out of Asbury Park, and they're doing Chancellor Williams. So we want to thank that 1-2 connection. That's a gut punch and a jaw, a broken jaw. Trust is the fighting gladiator in that, and they some good guys, good, bad, or indifferent. The Simotap organization with Dr. Mack, the Minefield program, 99.5 WBAI, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And they're going after Netflix, but Netflix is so slick with their nonsense. They got all these other Hollywood actors who they funding their projects and paying for them to do these movies, but nobody wants to talk about the Good Times television series that they just, the same people that they fund and make it look like they're doing all right, Netflix is doing that. They're also destroying their image and talking about them like dogs. Their mother, their father in that Good Times cartoon series. So not only do they kick you in the behind, they give you some money and let you put your program on and make you think you're doing something positive. But that Good Times cartoon series, they disrespect you and treat you like garbage. So this is Netflix. So audience, look into it, look at it. The people in Chicago should be up in arms. The UNIA, I just went to the Rock. I'm sorry I missed a couple of the events, but I went to the Rock. They had the convention and restoration. I went to the Rock, spent a little something, got me some supplies. They got an excellent herbal supplies, yucca, the juices, the sorrel, the ginger. They got the fish. Everything is in there. It's a baby Jetro. So we want to thank the UNIA. And what they're basically doing is trying their best to reprogram us so we can start spending some money with some very respectful people. So I want to thank Brother Raymond and also General President Michael Duncan. I just hope next year when we have the Harlem thing, it don't rain. Because now Weldon Lyric was pissed off. I don't know what I'm gonna do. You and I had to get him back for it, but my grandson. But I love him and I try to bring him out so they know. So ladies and gentlemen, good friend of the Mackey's history, all Dr. Lewis videos except for the one that they took off when he was talking about the 19. Dr. Lewis has always been a friend, and he comes through, and I need him to bring his stuff on no matter what. He's going to be coming, and he's going to do his thing because I need it, and I need his information on because I don't want to forget, and he's going to come on in all his lectures, and you can go back and study, and if you got a problem with anything he's saying, come down here and talk to him. But he will be continuing everything he knows. And it seems like he's taking up the mantle. So ladies and gentlemen, a great big hand, African Helping Africans, and the Mackey's History Club. Give a great big hand to our keynote speaker on the atrocities of America and Europe and the millions of deaths what they caused throughout history. And he's going to give it to you. Give him a great big hand, Dr. Arthur Lewis. You want boys out?
Those are the best claps ever. No, I'm good.
Okay, we're doing it. Okay, it's 2 minutes. All right.
Okay, I just want to extend my appreciation to the Mackeys, to the 3 lecture series, all of the individuals that come and participate in live activity and also electronically. I want to give appreciation for all of the people who support, who permit us to come to you with information that we as African people share with each other. And again, it's always a pleasure, an opportunity that I look forward to. Every 2 weeks, they said, David said that I can come and talk again. I said, that's excellent. So that means then that as we exchange information, it's very, very important. And getting information out is one of the battlefields, or one of the areas that are critical to any people, any individual, when it comes down to defining who you are. So, to give you an example of that, who you are, for those who are looking in for the first time or the second time, I find that it's important to define who you are. So, I'm going to repeat. My name is Arthur Lewis. For identification, I'm an African American, and for those who say, what does he mean when he says that he's an African American? Is I always indicate that the American part of that is to be authentic so that people could recognize you to say, well, what does it mean? It means that at this time, I am considered to be a citizen, a political definition, to be a citizen of a country that calls itself the United States of America. I'm a citizen. And with that citizenship, people assume that you get all of the rights and privileges of it. But what we're looking at when we say African American, African Caribbean, African whatever you are, is to let people know that you are cognizant of and you represent yourself that way. The African portion of it is to let people know I recognize the fact that my ancestors originated in Africa. What part of Africa, I don't know in terms of where do your people who come from, your people come from, Dr. Lewis. I don't know what particular area. I don't know who knows which particular area this particular member of your family come from because we moved around so much. So we got that clear about African American because a lot of some organizations and people who don't like the idea that you're here as African human beings here. They come up with this Afro this and Afro that and Afro. You gotta spell out. I'm not an African Cuban, Afro-Cuban, or an Afro this. I'm an African full person. What does it mean? You look at that area on the map that defines what is considered to be the landmass of the world. And perception is very important because I was reading recently where the African Union now is making a demand on everybody around the world to change the maps to reflect the true representation of the relative landmass in the earth. So now when you look at maps and charts that are moved around the world, mainly by Europeans, it looks like Africa, Greenland is bigger than Africa. Greenland can fit into Africa 14 times. That's perception. Oh, on the global scale, Africa isn't that important. Africans aren't that important because look how small Africa is. So that the African Union is saying that we want all the maps to reflect that psychology in terms of perception. After World War II, the United States set up 3 structures to control people around the world, especially people, non-European or white people, because you made up the vast majority of the population and all the natural resources are where you come from, or where you are. So, the perception is critical. One of the things that the United States did was set up the United Nations to politically dominate the rest of the world. When I use the word the rest of the world, I'm talking about all human beings who live on Earth except those people who you identify as white, European, whatever you want to call it. You are the vast majority of the population. So the United States came out of World War II, and we'll go into the detail, as a dominant country. And they got together at Bretton Woods, mainly white countries, white-controlled countries. We're going to dominate these Africans, we're going to dominate these Asians, and all these people of color that we colonized. We killed off by the millions in the last 500 years. Those Africans, and those Chinese, and those Caribbean, those people of color, that's who I'm talking about. That's who the United States decided with England and France to dominate all you people who identify yourself as African, all you people who identify yourself as Asian, but not as white people. So at that time and now, the so-called people on earth, at that time, 1945, population of the white people may have been 5, maybe 10%. That's after all the tens of millions that they killed in India and Africa and other places. So we set up the UN. The UN was set up by the United States, England, and France to dominate the rest of the world at that point. Because most of the world at that point, the Africans, the Asians, Caribbean, they were all under dominant rule. They were almost all colonized by the so-called white people. White people are white Americans and all those other people from Europe you identify. So to be clear. So let everybody join the UN, and all of the rules set up are set up by the United States. We're going to dominate the people of color after World War II militarily, because we have the strongest military force, and we're going to use the military force around the world to do what we want. We're going to check these people with our military. We're going to check them politically with the United Nations. And economically, we're going to set up a banking structure to dominate them economically. So then that's when the United States put in the US dollar as a global currency. Everybody had to use it. But the French said in 1944, I'm not letting my African countries that I run use the US dollar. And the US make all the money. We're going to create the French franc. So the French franc was created 1944 in December, they said, so that the African countries that were colonized by France would have to use the French money. Those three structures you got to keep in mind as the foundation upon which we're going to use to show how the non-white world, which is 95% of the world, are in the process of eliminating that setup. One of the things that's in place among the non-white, white people make up 4% of the world's population according to whoever is counting. 4 and negative. When we look at the different countries as they block it, they are talking about, and they're going to put in place, because they had a conference about 15 years ago, where the countries, I'm going to use that term, the non-white countries, I'm meaning that 95% of the world's population today is non-white, and the other one is white. So I just use that distinction. They're going to put in among themselves to change and reposition the United States to China. Not to come here. Now everybody can do what they want, but because most of the world blocking together, the 95% that are blocking as we go on are all people who are considered non-white and who have suffered from the colonialism. When you talk about colonialism, the last 500 years of the white Americans and Europeans killing millions of people and stealing everything that they can put their hands on. That's why you have the wealth now. So to be clear of what we're talking about. So I asked Ray, Ray said, what should I do? We talk about. I said, my presentation is the United States of America and Europe a threat to the human race? Is the United States of America and Europe, white Europe, a threat to humanity? Third time that I'm asking you to consider it in your mind. Is the United States of America and the European a threat to humanity? You come up with your own conclusion. So that's the gist of what we have here. Now, on the handout I gave you is 4 sheets. 2 of the sheets have been typed out and, I guess, photocopied in the proper way. The first sheet was handwritten by myself, photocopied, obviously isn't the best photocopy. So from now on, all of the sheets I give you will be printed out legibly. So there'll be 4 sheets. The first sheet that we're going to consider is the Holy Roman Empire. The second sheet is going to be dealing with the wars of portion of Asia, Russia, and the United States. So the second sheet is the heart, is the core of the presentation, so you'll understand the behavior pattern today of other countries around the world, and why that question about humanity and the effect that United States and Europe can have. The third sheet is a continuation, and the fourth sheet is on Burkina Faso. What we're going to do is I'm going to see if we can try to make this presentation of these 4 sheets in half an hour, so that that half an hour is the presentation of the material that I presented, so that you'll have it, you get familiar with it, so that you can see what I'm trying to do with this. Most of the information here is to let us start thinking about these are areas we got to start considering. The first sheet is on the Holy Roman Empire. The second and third sheet is dealing with wars in Europe and Asia, and the fourth sheet is dealing with Burkina Faso. Gary Bird had the brother, I forgot his name, dealing with it last night about what's the most important thing that has profoundly happened in Africa that affects the world. Before we cover these sheets, I have a short current events to give you. The current events that I want to give before we deal with these 4 pages. You don't have this. It's dealing with China and the Shanghai Cooperative Organization, number 1. Second, update on Venezuela. And third, Burkina Faso. Basically, the rest of the world has made a decision that they're going to work in a collective manner to eliminate the United States of America, specifically, and Europe, back to the position they were globally before they conquered everybody. And the way they're doing it, you will see it outlined. So the first thing I'm going to deal with quickly, because they don't bring any of this to you, you don't have this, is the Shanghai Cooperative Organization is a political, military, and economic organization put together by Russia and China about 20 years ago. And this Shanghai Cooperative Organization comprised with Russia, China, India, North Korea, Pakistan, Iran, and about 6 other countries in Asia called the Stans. Every one of these countries have been affected one way or another by the pillage and the murder and raping of their country by Western Europe and the United States. That's what they have in common. So they made a decision to group together. It's the Asian bloc. So you have almost all of Asia, about 2/3 of the world's population, in a military, economic bloc to restructure the way they live and trade with each other and the rest of the world. And their primary person who's trying to prevent this is the United States of America. So now the United States of America has to deal with these countries militarily, economically, and politically. That's what the Shanghai Cooperative Organization is. 2 days ago, China had a major military parade. In that major military parade, for the first time in China's history, the only one who marched in that Chinese military parade was Chinese. Now you have countries. China has said, okay, I would like those Asian countries that are in this bloc to put your military in honor us. Yes. I would like those European countries that work with us in Asia to march with us. Yes. Vanuatu and Fiji were in there. So that Asian bloc, which comprised the strongest countries militarily, economically, and politically. So the United States is in nowhere near that class of people. So you have that Asian bloc. That Asian bloc that represents the Shanghai Cooperative Organization is going to be the major bloc that's going to do most of the trading with Africa in the next 5, 10 years and more. Most of the trade with Africa was directed towards Europe and the United States because they colonized you. They didn't trade with you, they stole from you. But that's going to be eliminated. So there's two blocks here. The Asian bloc and the Africans. The Africans in the community of African unity. I can't get the name exactly. Organization. Not not the African Union. I can't think of the organization. So you've got two massive blocks. You have two massive blocks. It'll come to me in a minute. Of Africans join the African Free Trade Continental Zone. 54 African countries blocked with about 20 Asian countries in 2 blocks. Those 2 blocks are going to run the world. The United States and Europe are going to be a backwater. That's what is leading here. That's the global plan, and it's coming there. The second thing I wanted to do is to deal with Venezuela. If you're not familiar with what is happening recently in Venezuela, is that the United States has stated that Venezuela is a narco state, and they have sent a number of warships to Venezuela, near Venezuela water, threatening to invade Venezuela. You can look on the internet and you see about 10 or 12 ships, submarine, airplane, and they have 4,000 American soldiers ready to invade. 4,000, because Venezuela is a narco state, he says. They say. So I look at this, I said, let's see what's going on here. One of the ships that was sent by Trump was a nuclear-powered submarine. And evidently there is some kind of treaty among all of the countries that share the Gulf of Mexico in that area. They have a treaty. I don't remember, I didn't jot down the name. And it said that no country will allow nuclear weapons in that area, Caribbean area. So all of the countries, not CARICOM, there's a specific treaty. All of the countries of the Caribbean, the small ones, the big ones, all of the big countries off of Central and South America has taken the position to support Venezuela because they said that the United States violated the treaty not to bring nuclear weapons in. So the United States has nobody to go along with it. China, Russia, Iran stated to the United States, they say, they're going to back Venezuela. They're not going to let you invade this country.
Treaty of Tlatelolco.
Say that again?
Treaty of Tlatelolco.
She gave you the treaty. I looked at it but didn't jot it, but that's why we all have to contribute. There's a treaty. They said we don't want this. We don't want confusion. The only one making confusion is the United States. So there's a treaty, nobody's backing it. China, Russia, Iran back and protect Venezuela. Venezuela has military training, equipment, technology. Venezuela's coast, the coast of Venezuela, is 1,700 miles. The coast of the United States is 2,100 miles. How the United States going to take 4,000 troops to cover an area running from Massachusetts to Florida? It doesn't make sense. Venezuela, they say, have an army of 150,000 active combat, and they have a militia of 4.5 million. What is Trump doing to put 4,000 troops? Knowing that Venezuela has almost 150,000 well-armed troops. Venezuela, they say, they made the army. They're back with Russia, and them has already built them up. They can put 4.5 militia. China does oil purchase from Venezuela and infrastructure, loans, water and trade. Russia's military technology. So here is the United States bringing a military force. They put a bounty on the president of Maduro. We'll give you $50 million if you can bring and arrest Maduro. Would you take 50 million pieces of paper from the United States of America that won't give you reparations? What good is that paper? So that's what your country is here. You got one war going in Iran, which has been lost by the United States and the Europeans. You have another war going on in Israel, Palestine, which they have lost. You bomb Iran, that's a third war going. And now you got a fourth war. You think you're going to get, but every one of these wars, as you will see, costs money. And then who pays for the war? Smedley Butler told you who's paying for the war. Okay. So you got the Shanghai Cooperative Organization. Look it up. Bloc of Asia. The Africans are in the bloc. On Burkina Faso, we're going to mention this on Burkina Faso, and then we're going to go to Burkina Faso at the end. Burkina Faso just announced a trade agreement with India. It's a 50 billion, it's a 55, it's a $5 billion mutual trade agreement. They're going to give India X amount of oil, and India is going to give it something. Normally, what happened during the time of the colonists, of the Europeans going around the world colonizing, they go into a country, kill down the population, and steal everything. That's the foundation of the United States wealth. As one of the presenters said, the United States is stolen land and stolen theft. They never want to talk about who they are. Right. So now, $15 billion agreement, signed a paper, they say, India and the government. What is it that India is going to do if Burkina Faso gives them oil? Burkina Faso, they just found 50 billion barrels of oil. So they said the trade is going to be done in barter. Barter. You provide the technology and certain materials, and you get the oil. That's the trade. Barter. Your country is built up without going for no loan from anybody. And so I wrote it down. I'm going to read it quickly. What they're saying that's coming out. Partnership in oil for technology, energy, modernization, sovereignty, and respect. Let's remember that Africa gave to every one of these areas that are now country. They gave them the language, they gave them the history, and you gave them all of the technology. So it ain't nothing. Only the Africans are getting technology. You gave the world technology. When we look back, when you consider Donald Trump's grandfather coming here, third generation. Bill Gates' grandparents come here, third generation, 5th generation, came here with what they had on their backs. And look at where they are because of a system that was set up on the mass killing of indigenous people and the labor of African, and most of these inventions with the railroads and everything were done by an African. So these white people, when you consider the mass immigration of white people coming from Europe into the country, and you try to list what inventions they came here with, you don't have it. So this is what they're going to get, 15 billion. Steel mills, petrochemical plants, power grids, workshops, investment in training, modernization for youth, power homes and factories, $4 billion oil extraction and refining. In other words, you're not going to take the oil away and you give me $2 for this barrel of oil. You're going to get your cut of oil, but while you're getting your cut, you're going to build an oil factory. You're going to build all of the structure. It's like Angola did when they had their oil. Angola, at that point, they drill and refine their oil. Now, they needed the people, outsiders, to help drill the oil. So they gave a contract to the French, they gave one to the Americans, they gave one to the Spanish, they gave one to Russia. 5 or 6, you all drill for oil. I'm going to give each of you a piece. Why do I do that? So that none of you going to get a monopoly to tell me what you're going to do. I set the conditions. If you don't like the condition, you get you out of here. And it's going to come with training and come with infrastructure. So that's what the Burkina Faso and those countries are doing. They got 55 billion barrels of oil. You have vast gold. You know, that's how the world used to trade, barter. Until the white people came, disrupted that and said, let's see if why are we going to barter with somebody when we can kill them and take it? And then those we can't kill and take it, you know, that's how all the wealth of this country in Europe got it. $4 billion of oil extraction and refining, value-added production, $5 billion for petrochemical energy infrastructure, pipelines, processing plant, $3 billion steel manufacturing for the youth. Mainly thing is directed towards educating and letting the youth build the country, because the older people like us, we going. Wherever you go, when you go. But they're getting everything in place for the next generation. $2 billion for this defense technology. $2 billion for $1 billion for agriculture, telecommunication training, foreign direct investment. So basically, what Burkina Faso is doing, like all the countries are now doing, because now there's been a shift. We want the country built. We need the technology that we gave y'all a long time ago. To Russia, give you an example, one of Russia's industrial military company is now in Burkina Faso. And Burkina Faso said to that company, I'll give you this oil field. They got so many oil fields. I'll give you this one. So much? This project is 7 years. In 7 years, you get 70% of the project. We get 30%. After the 7 years, while they're building, they're going to have a massive factory complex that will allow Burkina Faso to make all of their own jeeps, the tanks, and everything you need. Because Burkina Faso said, like anybody else, 2 things you have to do to run the country. You got to be able to feed yourself and to protect yourself. So that's what they're getting out of that. Yeah. And they're making other deals. Burkina Faso makes their own pistols, they say, their own rifles, their own bullets, everything so that they're self-sufficient. And this is the same pattern that they have put into Venezuela. So that's the latest thing, one of the latest things that Burkina Faso has done, the Shanghai Cooperative in Venezuela. Now we're going to get to these 4 sheets. I'm going to try to do it in about 15 minutes because the main thing is for you to see what it is that I'm presenting to you. Got to present it in such a way that you can digest it. The first sheet, you should be able to read it, but it's not sharp because it isn't tight. It's the Holy Roman Empire of the German nations. What the hell is he talking about? I'm going to read it as I took it down, different pieces, doing the research, and then I'll give you an analogy, then you'll know what it is. The Holy Roman Empire, when you look it up, when you say, what the hell is the Holy Roman Empire? You will see a conglomerate of borders. And then these borders are where? We're going to start getting the map. In what is now Germany, what is now France, what is now Italy, in that area. Okay, so the Roman Empire was that empire that came out of Europe, they went into Africa, took parts of Africa and other places. Why Africa? Because that's where all the food was. All of the minerals, all the technology. That's where the Romans got Christianity from. The Greeks got it from Africa. Dr. Bento, you wrote the book, Europe, the major Western religions of Africa was major Western religion, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. They all come out of Africa. And then you say, why is this? They find this archaeological, these old Christian cities and temples in Africa. Because you see, Dr. Ben shows you the connection between one is the other. Okay. So the Roman Empire flourished for whatever you look it up, 800 or 900 years in that part of Europe and then piece of Africa. And everybody always wanted to conquer that part of Africa with Egypt and that area because it connected to Asia, because the Silk Road was 2 roads, one across the land, but most of the Silk Road came out of China and India to eastern part of Africa. Egypt and the eastern part. The Asians and Africans were trading. Europeans wasn't trading a damn thing because they didn't have anything to trade. So they always try to show you in the trade. They show it from China. And they said, oh, we went to Europe. We didn't go to Europe. It had a land component and had a water component. You always move much more with water. So most of the trade between the Silk Road was between Asia, primarily China, and the eastern part of Africa. One across the landmass, because as Dr. Ben reminds us, the Suez, Asia, Europe, Africa, and Asia were always connected by a land bridge until they made the Suez Canal. Okay, so Roman Empire flourished for whatever time period you wanted to say it flourished. And then over time, as Professor Mackey said, the Germans came into history as marauders. So as things go, those people moving from Asia, people moving from the northern part, over time, they started they were able to collapse the Roman Empire. Who? These Germanic, European, North European people destroyed what it was it is slipping me now, the Roman Empire. They destroyed the western part, but they didn't get the eastern part, which would be where Turkey is, Istanbul, and the other thing. They give it a date. The date that they give it, whoever they are, 900 to 1806, was what? The period that these historians give to the Holy Roman Empire of German nation. The reason, what it was is, let's read it and then I'll give you the analogy of New York and we move to the next one. Where was it? Central Europe. Well, look at the map and where you look at France and Germany are now. It was German identity because most of the people in that area that was part of that empire were what they call Germanic people, wherever they are. And it was Roman culture. Roman culture was the culture they adopted from Africa. Foods, buildings, everything. So Roman culture is African culture. The religion was Latin because of the influence of Rome. The primary religion was Christianity and polytheism. Because remember, the Romans were polytheistic, and then they started adding on Christianity. In that area, that big area, how many different groups of people were living together? You know, like if you live in a big apartment house, and there are 800 apartments in that. That apartment house is the Holy Roman Empire. That landmass called the Holy Roman Empire was what? What was old Rome up to now Germany in that area. Those Germanic people went in, and most of the people in Europe at that time were living in that area, running from Germany way down to what is Italy and to the right and the left. So they call it the Holy Roman Empire. The religion was Christianity and polytheism. They say 1,800 territorial areas. What does that mean? 1,800 territorial areas. If we could go in and survey it, you would identify in that landmass 1,800 different groupings of people. In each one of those 1,800 groupings of people, they would have their own leader, their own rules and regulations, their own farming. There was no such thing as a unified church. That Holy Roman Empire runs from what you call Germany down to Italy. It existed according to these papers from 900 to 1800. And there was no European country. There were 18, some were kingdoms, some were principalities, some were free states, some were ecumenical or church, territory, ecclesiastical. Who else could have been a ruler? King, emirates, dukes, counts, bishops, federalists, many local leaders, decentralization of state, semi-autonomous state, weak central government, no central administration, no central military. It's as if you take New York City, 8 million living in the area you call New York City. New York City has one police force. In these areas, you have 1,800 different independent, you have 1,800 police forces, 1,800 militaries, 1,800 government. You had no unity. Multiple ethnic population, predominantly German. Primary German dominance in the central area. It is now what the area also includes Italy, central and south. We move on to the right. Slovaks, Czechs, Poles, Saxons, Frankish, French, Dutch. Flemish. These are all different people right now. If you look at all these different countries in Europe, they're different names. That's what the Holy Roman Empire was, a mass area in what is now Germany, France, and some of Europe. From 900, they were fractured, scattered little pieces, fighting, killing over land and everything. Right here, Slavic, Czechs, Poles, Frankish, French, Dutch, Flemish, Roman population, Carthaginians, Egyptians, Germans, Greeks, Dutch, Flemish, Gaul, Swiss, based on location of birth and not color. So you just had a whole grouping of people. The modern day, 2000, the countries that would made up the Holy Roman Empire would now be what you call Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, France, Italy, Germany, Lithuania, Netherlands, Slovakia, and Switzerland. Now, you don't have this, but I'm going to jump to give you an illustration of what it is. I looked up the little schematic on Donald Trump's grandfather. And the reason I pulled it out is to give you an illustration of how Europe was fractured. So they say here, his grandfather, Friedrich Trump, the three major conditions that existed in Europe during these times. If you ever look at Robin Hood and all, and you see the dukes own this and this guy's fighting that, that's the Holy Roman Empire. Three things that drove, when you say, well, why did 100 to 150 Europeans mass migrate out of Europe? They're not going down to Africa, desert. They're not armies. They're not going. If you look at the map, they're not going, if you look at your map, they're not going east into Asia. They're not going south into Africa. We're talking about the migration of white Europeans from Europe from 1850 to 1925. 150 million flooding out. What were they running from? They were running from famine because of these cold weather patterns, crop failures. When you have crop failures, you can't feed your people and stuff, then you get the epidemics, tuberculosis and all the others. They were running from disease and starvation. When you hear about the Irish potato, it wasn't just Ireland, the whole of Europe, Central Europe, crop had none. So they're running because of famine, and they're running because of disease. At that time, in 1850, those 18 countries that made up the Holy Roman Empire, they were fighting with each other all the time. They had what they call a 100-year war, fighting over territory. So then you had a conglomerate of human beings battling over what is not good soil to grow. So Trump's grandfather and who's the other white guy?
Biden?
No, the white guy with all the money. Bill Gates. No, Bill Gates' grandfather. Trump's grandfather, they say, is a German. They say, what's his name? We just had it. Bill Gates' people, they have Irish, Scots, English, German. And according to that, the people, the human people coming in, and we at the entry, what are you? I'm an Englishman. What are you? I'm a Frenchman. What are you? You understand? Okay. So Trump's grandfather, they state in their records Bill Gates' grandparents are English, Scott, Irish, the whole bit, because they're all mixed up. And what did they say? One of his grandfathers came to America, Massachusetts, running from persecution, running from war. 3 things. Because at that time, in the Holy Roman Empire that was formulating, there was a German bloc, and they were battling with the French. So the French and the German, around 1800, they had a 100-year war. So those white men who came to America, their grandparents, they don't talk about. Because what you're going to tell the world is, oh, my grandfather, we were famine. They were killing. Do you think Europeans, as Dr. McIntosh tells us about this, what you call this, rampage about blacks and this and all of these things, that's to destroy you as human people, to degrade you, but you never hear them talk about what their grandparents did. Because if you go back to the record, you came off that boat, you had lice, you had all these infectious disease. You see the vaccinations that used to bring, when they took Africans from the Africans didn't have it.
That's right.
Chicken pox and measles and mumps. The indigenous people didn't have it. How do you know? Because they used those diseases to kill them down.
That's right.
So these white people, remember now, these Germans are used to killing because the people who now run, who call themselves English, they are German Anglo-Saxons who invaded that big group of islands, knock off the French, knock off the Irish, the Scots, and Wales, killing them down. These are the people who are coming now to the United States, and you want to ask about Hitler, you ask what's in the culture. So they say, Bill Gates, one of his grandpa, he came from prosecution. Now, what does the record say? Look in the record, I didn't make this up. To give you an idea why you have all of these white people coming, and go back to the record, chickenpox, measles, mumps. In the United States, the 5 major killers of people, when they say now, in America, what are the average one of us going to die from? They say cardiovascular disease. The second one, medical, the doctor's going to kill you. The third one, they say, is cancer. If you go back to when the Europeans started flooding in the 1800s, 1910, what you most likely would die from. They're not talking about the indigenous people. They're not talking about the Africans. They're talking about those Europeans who came from Europe that's living in these cities, in New York City. The 2 biggest causes of infectious disease and malnutrition. Because that's what they came from. They were running because of the food. They were running because of the wars. So now, according to what they said, Donald Trump, Friedrich Trump, grandfather of Donald Trump, born 4/14/1869 in a city called Karlstadt. At this point, there is no formalized Germany. There is no formalized Italy. The countries you see on our map didn't exist because they were still a hodgepodge. So he was born, the records they say, in Karlstadt. In Karlstadt was a district of that area, which is now Germany, in the Kingdom of Bavaria. At that time, there was no Germany. You still had hundreds of all these little places. So he was born, he was born in the Kingdom of Karlstadt, the Kingdom of Bavaria. 1869. That area, Kingdom Karlstadt, will be brought into the German Empire in 1871. Because the German part is beginning to kill off people to form formulate what is present-day Germany. So according to their record, he was born in 1869. His passport, his citizenship is not German. Didn't exist at that point. It's a Karlstadt. He's of the Kingdom of Bavaria.
You said B or B?
B, B-A-V-A-R-I-A. Kingdom of Bavaria. Like I said, I am African American. Wait, what's he talking about? Oh, American, he's from the citizen of America, and he claims his ancestors as African. Trump's ancestors, and he is a king, he's a citizen of Karlstadt. There's no Germany at that point for them. Only in 1971, 2 years later, will Karlstadt, part of the Kingdom of Bavaria, will be absorbed into the German Empire in 1871. So he's not a German by birth. It's like saying Arthur Lewis was born in the South Bronx and did make up whatever the hell you want. They renamed the South Bronx the North Bronx and then say I was born in the North Bronx. I wasn't born in I was born in the South Bronx. You changed it. So he was born, they say here, Karlstadt, Kingdom of Bavaria, and only 2 years later, they will be pulled into the German Empire. So your friends decide to make him a German. He's a German. He's not a German in terms of birth, but they don't want to put on his record that at that time there was no Germany, but just another bunch of Europeans killing each other. You can't have that. So they say he's a German. No. Then they say he traveled to the United States. Okay. His grandfather traveled to the United States. He lived downtown with his sister, because his sister had come. Then he went to California, did whatever they say he did with these hotels and stuff, prostitution and everything.
His grandfather was a pimp.
Right, in Clinton, not Clinton.
The prostitution was used by the
Biden?
No, the guy was now Trump.
The
Grandfather, he made his business
prostitution,
prostitution.
which led to the money.
And what else? What was big at that time?
Gambling.
Who?
Bootlegging.
Moonshine.
Yeah, that you always had moonshine. What was big? Remember, okay, your president, Trump, said that Venezuela is a drug cartel. We gotta fight the drug cartel. He didn't tell you most of the deaths from overdose of the drug. Private pharmaceutical companies overwhelmingly kill most of the people dead from the narcotic, whatever the hell you call it. They come from the thing across there. It's the pharmaceutical. But Trump said that his people said Venezuela's a narcotic trade. Wait now. What was the biggest drug brought from China? From the two Chinese
Opium drug.
He gonna talk about somebody selling drugs? Y'all look.
The British.
Opium water.
You go. The reason when I was in West Africa, part of the Caribbean, and then Vanuatu, that's when I really began to see how white people, especially Americans, are mistreating us. Because the same way they mistreat black people there, they treat identical. If you want to know the mistreatment of any African, past and present under a ruler, all you got to do is wake up every day. Ain't no damn difference. So, they say here, so he goes to California, then he comes back, and in 1901, he returns to Karlstadt, not to Germany. He don't go back to Germany. He came up in Karlstadt. He don't recognize Germany. He marries. They say here he goes back to Karlstadt to live, or whatever he wanted to do. And when they took the records up, not the Germans, the Karlstadt took the records up. Remember, there's a big war coming, World War I. The Europeans are still battling, so everybody's getting their military. They're conscripting everybody. So when he goes back to Karlstadt, 1901, they opened the record books and said, wait now. You left the country. You were not authorized. You didn't notify us, the Karlstadt government, not the German government. The Karlstadt government, they said, you didn't notify us that you were leaving the country. You departed in 1881 illegally. And the Bavarian government labeled him a draft dodger and stripped his citizenship in 1905. Germans didn't do the Karlstadt. And just throw that little side for all the people who are going to tell you about, and Trump tell you, oh, we built the Panama Canal. Those 99% white people, all leeches, at his ceremony, all of their damn grandparents came over here on them damn boats, bringing nothing. They don't want to talk about it. Because I had white friends, I said, what are you? I said, I'm an African American. What are you? I'm an American. How come you don't talk about the Irish? None of them want to talk about where they come from. I'm an American. I'm not Irish. I'm not this, okay? Talk about the African people. All right, little way. So that is a little piece. Running from disease, famine, and war. That's the Holy Roman Empire. I wanted to bring that to your attention. That's the first page of the 4 pages. 1, 2. So we got 3 more pages to go, and we'll finish them out by 15 minutes. The 3rd page, which is marked, and then the 4th page, which is marked, is dealing with wars between Russia, what is now Russia, the Soviet Union, and Europe. The second half of this is dealing with your country. United States is no less a colonial empire than any of the other ones. What's his name? Smedley Butler told you that. How they went around Mexico and they mess up the Caribbean and they go into the Pacific and take Hawaii from African people, didn't make war on the Philippines. Meanwhile, you're working with your cousin in the UK, running heroin. Two heroin wars, the United States was involved. And then Trump is sitting there telling people, the Chinese are not doing us right. The Chinese are not giving American soldiers credit for helping them break away from the Japanese. A damn liar. Because it was the Japanese that went into Asia. And the Asians, the Chinese, and the Vietnamese, and the Indians, they were fighting Japan. You look up the page and find out when Japan started invading. You take that date. Up until the time Japan was defeated in 1945. So if you take an arbitrary date of 1941, when the United States and Switzerland cut off the oil, Japan invaded into Asia through China, Manchuria, and was driving down to get the oil and all the natural resources from the Southeast Asia to maintain its empire. Just like the United States was stealing all of the oil they can get the damn hands on, stealing it from Mexico and from Venezuela. That's where their theft comes from. So Japan said, I need a source of oil to do what I got to do. So they cut them off and they pushed their hand. So from 1941, 1939, when the Japanese invaded Asia through Manchuria and went down south and then went to Vietnam and those other areas, he was trying to go to, which Asian country got the oil? The Dutch took it. Indonesia, vast amount of oil. That's where the Dutch company got their oil. So they were trying to get into Indonesia to get the oil to continue the empire. But from 1938, 39, it was the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Asians were fighting Japan, and they're the ones who broke Japan. Not the United States. They put a damn troop in there to help China. They just were there for the two two opium wars, which we will go on, stealing from China. And then when we made the presentation of how the Soviet Union developed China's infrastructure from 1949 to 1970, and how they gave Soviet Union assisted China, what was China, built up the rail system, the whole system gave them credit and everything. So the Soviet Union, under Stalin, they developed China. They protected China from the United States, embargo. They protected China militarily. But you see, but if you don't know the history, if you don't go back, they feed you anything. These people are the fantasy land. So the United States was never a friend of big China, big China now. Then after the war, when the Mao Zedong won with the backing of the Russian, and Chiang Kai-shek was defeated, he jumped over to Taiwan. And the United States backed him, Taiwan, that China, nationalist China. Just like you say Africa, we got some leaders that sell out the country. So Chiang Kai-shek was the one who was working with the Europeans during the time they were there against the Chinese people. So they got pushed over. And then they went and took over the island of Taiwan, which originally and still there was African. So the United States was never, well, you can forget about Trump. He make it up as he goes. And then, so you have to go back. The reason that I go back now to start piecing all it together, so you understand where the country's going. Like we had dealt with one time, I gave you the map, we'll give it. When we looked at the Yucatan, we looked at the Central America, running from Mexico down to, I can't think of the country, Colombia. And why Mexico is building in the central, the narrowest part of the Sierra Madre Mountains, there's a railroad system. They're massively upgrading that system so that they can move goods from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific. So they don't have to deal with the United States. And how Nicaragua is planning to develop a movement of railroad and boat across Nicaragua so they don't have to deal with the Panama Canal. And Colombia is doing the same thing. So you got Mexico, Colombia, and Nicaragua all developing a rail link between the Gulf of Mexico and the Pacific to do dealing with China. South Korea, China, and Taiwan, they're dropping the trade. They're preparing to drop the trade with the United States successfully. That's what they're planning. And then if you look at the map of that big jet in Mexico called the Yucatan, they're dredging that. So in about 4 or 5 years, most of the trade that came from Asia into Mexico and the U.S., Mexico's going to bypass the U.S. China is going to bypass the U.S. They're doing it right now. Okay, so that's what happened with Trump. Running the heroin, like most of these big Rockefeller oil, everybody big here made it big by the oil and the heroin. Now let's get to the third page and let's move so that we can finish out and we can go to question and answers or discussion. Look at this sheet. It's there. In this sheet, it's not important to remember the dates or the incident. You can do that later. It's to show you the pattern. We're going through Russia, the country you call Russia, which was built in pieces like any imperialistic country. But we're going to go back to Russia and then bring you up to Russia now, so you'll understand why the United States and the Europeans instigated this war against Russia, to weaken it, so that Russia would not challenge the United States and the Western Europeans. Then Russia would not be able to Iran, because Iran, Russia, and China are the main ones that's just like if you look at Traore in the, what you call the Sahel nations, they're setting a pattern of how you can run your country to industrialize it and protect it without borrowing a dime from anybody. And how you can industrialize your country in 5 or 10 years. In about 10 years, Africa will be more industrialized than Europe. It's almost there. If you add up the industrialization, that's even in South Africa, what little bit is in Kenya, what's in Egypt, and the number is already past Germany, France, Spain, because these economies are collapsing. They don't have the energy because the U.S. blew up the gas line, so they don't have that, and Nigeria cut them off from the uranium. Europe is failing. It's not failing to most people because you don't follow it. They're failing. So let's go through this quickly. What's important here is to show a pattern of what is happening, why there's so much antagonism against Russia by the United States and the West. It had to do with after World War II, because the United States became the dominant military power, and the only country that was strong enough to challenge it was the Soviet Union.
Challenge America.
Challenge America, militarily, etc. And how do you know that? Because in the 1900s, when Africa was in full scale during their revolutionary wars to get rid of the Europeans, who fought with the Europeans? Who aided and fought with the Europeans against you in your independence struggle in the 1900s? Who? Who? But you say it for the people. Who were the main ones who fought against African independence movement during the 1900s? The United States of America. And they aided every European country. So if you think the United States of America wasn't your enemy, just look at that. Now, you go back a little bit. When you look at if you look at the people who signed the charter of the UN, it's 50 countries. And you look at those 47 countries that was at the Bretton Woods. They were all white. You write it down, there was 2 from the Caribbean, about 4 from Central America, a number was from South America, but the main ones who were running it was United States, England, France, and then they included all of the European together. So at the time of the UN, what was the status of Africa? Ethiopia was independent. Liberia was a colony of the United States. Egypt was under the English. And South Africa was represented at that conference by white people. So the 47 countries who signed the Bretton Woods and who signed the UN, all of our countries effectively were colonized. That's the state we were in that United States wanted to. When you look at Asia, Southeast Asia, the French here, and England had India, Pakistan, Afghanistan. Most of Asia were colonized just like most of us at the time World War II ended. The Caribbeans were all locked down by some European country. So what you had at the time that the was under the colonial rule of a person you call white. So you ain't had a damn thing to do with the UN or Bretton Woods or any of these other things. That's by white people for white people. That's the way they were going to control it. And the only one at that time, after World War II, who had enough military might to challenge the United States, to challenge France from stealing everything they could on. To challenge white people were the Chinese. Was the Soviet Union. They had an intact army. You see, because when the war started, England, France, and Germany, all of their industrial capacity was destroyed. All of the raw materials that made them were cut off because they all came from Africa. So the United States is looking and saying, let the English and French and Germans fight among themselves. They're going to wear themselves down. We take from Africa. That's when the United States moved in. So the war ends. The United States don't have to deal with about Asians. The Asians are down. They don't threat to them. The Africans are still locked out. They don't threat to them. The Caribbean, everybody's locked out. But Russia, the Soviet Union did not, they signed the paper to the UN, but they didn't ratify it. They signed the paper for Bretton Woods, they didn't ratify. So when they look back, the white people said, United States, England, France, Germany, they said, in order for us to be able to continue to steal, Russia opposed us. You had two incidences. Russia actually helped, the Soviet Union helped Big China get rid of Japan and get rid of Chiang Kai-shek. That's the first thing that Russia did that blew the United States away. Damn, look at what they did. Then the Russians backed the Chinese against them in the Korean War. The Russians backed the Chinese in the Vietnamese War. So in other words, them damn Russians drove us out of China. Heroin trade was good. They drove us out of Southeast Asia. Damn it. Now they're over there helping the Africans get free. Where the hell are we going to get our food from, our minerals and everything from? You have to sit down with these white people and see how to do it. I have sat down with them. These boys go crazy. You know how to make yourself invisible? That's how you do it. You figure it out. No, I didn't sit down. But I think I got a little sense of how that mentality work. Because you look at the history of what they did, how their mind worked. So Russia was always the one after World War II that the United States dominated Europe now. Remember, England and France were, at the turn of the century, the United States was number 9. 1900, England was stronger militarily, economically. England, France, Germany, Soviet Union, China, Japan, and many aspects of Africa. Way behind. But after World War I and II, when the English lost World War I, the United States told England, you got to pay me in gold. Russia paid their dues. World War II, by the time World War II set up, from 1900 to 1944, most of the industrial countries which were way ahead of the United States were destroyed. China was destroyed. China was, like parts of Africa, industrialized until the English and the US came and messed it up. So, the world ends. The United States and these white people are sitting at the table with their pedophile children, the one that gets raped the other day. And the homosexuality. What are you talking about? Why the U.S. government trying to push homosexual in Africa, in Ghana, and the rest of them say you go to hell? What you trying to do? So Russia was the country that the United States, Germany, France, they said, look, we got to get rid of, knock down Russia has vast natural resources. The European, England, France, and them invested in Russia because the Tsar was hooked up, you know, like all of these white people hooked up, the billionaires, to each other in the World Economic Forum. The Europeans were all hooked up with each other. And they were making money and getting natural resources from Russia through the Tsar. So after World War I, when there was the Russian Revolution and they came out of World War I to fight. So now, Russia is no longer fighting the Germans, and then they're now having a civil war. Before they had the damn civil war in World War I, the Europeans were getting raw wood. Everything Africa got, Russia got on. Fish, food, we said it, oil, gas, wood, uranium, food, fertilizer, minerals. They were getting everything. Europe was living out of Africa and Russia. Then they got shut down. So during World War I, Russia had to come out of the war to have their war. The rest of them war. So guess what? The United States had two opportunities to bring down Russia. One was 1920 or 1919, we look at the date, and the other one was just before Putin come in, when Russia had collapsed, and the United States was raping Russia. Just like the businessmen come into a community and rape you, that's what they were doing to Russia when the Soviet Union collapsed, with Belson, and it was going down. They hook up with the oligarchs, and come to me, and they were raping Russia.
Gorbachev.
Now, it was it'll come to me. Yeah, well, Gorbachev and the rest of them, okay. Okay, so let's get to this. So to give you some background. So if we want to put them damn Russians helping the Africans, they made a major role with Cuba. The two countries that are most important for African liberation is Russia, because they brought in military supply, equipment, and they had troops, and Cuba. And who fought against you? Israel was part of the connection between the United States and South Africa. So they fought against your independence. The American people, the white people here, no different than their cousins. That's why I'm asking the question. Is the United States of America and Europe a danger to the human race? You have to figure that out. I can't figure it out. I already come to my conclusion. I can't say it. Okay, so let's look at this top here. Mongol invasion of Europe. Mongol invasion from 1300 to 1500, using textbooks writings because they have some authenticity. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856. Who fought the war? The Roman Empire, Russian Empire, which was Russia, was the Soviet Union at that time, against the Ottoman Turks. That's Turkey. 1600, 17. So who fought against Russia in the Crimean War? They're fighting over territory in the Black Sea. Russia on one side, Ottoman Turks, Ottoman Empire, which is Turkey, France, and U.S. Ottoman Turks, France, and UK was fighting with Russians over all that land they now contest. The Russians drove them out. 1812 to 1218, 6 months, France invades Russia. Russia is against France. When Napoleon tried to go in, the France had the Italians, Austrians, the Prussians, and Spain, all trying to break into Russia. So they already gained Russia before. You go down, World War I, 1900, 1914 to 1918. Russia against the Germans. They're trying to get into Russia to get the wood, the diamonds, the gold, everything. That's agriculture. Allied invasion of Russia. when Russia pulled out of World War I, and from 11/7/1917 to 1925, 8 years, Russia was invaded by France, UK, the US, Italy, Japan, Romania. They went in. They broke into Russia. Japan came from the south, from the east, and they were in Russia for 7 or 8 years, stealing it and trying to bring it down. This isn't new against Russia. Why Russia? Because Russia, previously, during the Berlin Conference of 1885, just a little bit after that, Russia assisted the Ethiopians with troops, gunpowder, weapons to stop Italy from taking them over. So Russia was always a damn headache for the white people. So they went into Russia. World War II, Germans against Russia. Post-World War II, Operation Unthinkable, 1945. The US and the UK had a secret military plan to attack the Soviet Union. They didn't have enough force. Operation Drop Shot, 1949. US and Western Europe had a plan for a nuclear war and conventional war on Russian city, 1977. They always planned on it. They didn't do it because they didn't have enough power. Planned Totality, 1945. Nuclear attack, Soviet Union. 20 to 80 atomic bombs to bomb out Russian city. They just didn't have enough atomic bombs. Number 1, Chechen War, 1994 to 1996. Russia against Chechnya. They lost that war. That was United States putting in those jihadists to break up Russia. Second Chechen War, from 1999 to 2009, Russia versus it again. Now we go up to this side. We almost finished. Afghan and the Soviet War. The Afghan asked the Soviet Union to come in to assist it. The Soviet Union came in to assist it. So from 1979 to 1989, the Soviet Union was assisting the Afghan against a number of countries. Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. They were fighting over those Asian countries. Russia, Afghan communists, Mujahideen. Ukraine and Russian war from 2022 to current. They're trying to break Russia, but Russia broke them. Now we're going down to this line, we almost finished. We now want to show you what your country has done. U.S. plans to attack 7 Muslim states. General Wesley Clark in the Pentagon said, he got a thing that said, the United States is planning to attack 7 Muslim states because the United States is using economic. What they do is they use their force to destroy you. Just like they destroyed the black community here. Iraq, 1990 to 2003. They attacked and destroyed Lebanon using Israel. Israel is their military army. 1980, attacked Afghanistan. 20 years. Attacked Syria, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Iran. War after war after war. You hammer these countries because we got the big weapon. U.S. President William Clinton, 41st president, they give you the date. George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Donald Trump. Under
You said Barack Obama?
what did I say?
You messed up.
Wait now. Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Barack, I put him in. William Clinton, Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Biden, and Trump again. Under those 5 presidents, in that span of time, United States wars that you know of, the wars you know of, they killed, the agency, I can get the name for you, they killed 1 million. Those 5, United States under the 5 president, is the U.S. government documents that the government of the United States killed at least 1 million people dead. For every one dead that you kill, they calculate this out. 4 million people die. Every time you kill one, 4 more people die because of the side effects. So these 5 countries, presidents, have 5 million dead people, almost all people of color. Every one of them were sitting when the government told them kill 1 million of these Arabs, these Africans,
These Haitians.
these Haitians. Displacement, 38 million people. All of Syria had to go in here. Then when they bombed out this place, you see what they did to Syria. Expenditures, United States claimed they spent $8 trillion. But Bush, Trump, like Orwell, gave a $4 trillion tax break for the richest white Americans and the biggest corporations when he was in. They just passed the law again saying you don't have to pay it back. But you better pay back your damn taxes.
That's right.
Next page here, and then we ending up. The first Opium War, 1839 to 1842.
British.
China, the Qing dynasty, was battling the UK, British, and America joined on in the first war. They're cousins. The second Opium War, 1856 to 1860, same dynasty, UK, United States, and the French said, give me a piece of this. Man, you kill all these damn Chinese, you screw all the women.
And they got a book called Low Life. Talks about that. Chinese drug addicts on the Lower East Side, not on the Lower East Side, on Canal Street, in the opium dens. It's called Low Life.
It is from this basic foundation that all the damn drugs that come in this country don't come in this way. It comes into the pharmaceutical companies. The vast majority of users of heroin at this point is white people in Europe and the United States. So the United States was in there. Britain was in for 200 years in what is now what you call it, Pakistan, India. And I always mention the fact that the English scholars were arguing with the Indian scholars, wherever the hell they were arguing, over how many people the English killed. The English said, we only killed 35 million of you. He said, no, we got to count at least 70 million. You're telling me that you don't understand, we don't understand, tens of millions of Africans were killed down, tens of millions of indigenous. That's your fellow Americans. The fourth Opium War, the third Opium War was Vietnam. You know, they put all the drugs in the people and they push it here in the United States. The fourth Opium War was the Afghan War. When the United States got there, and they started growing the poppy, because remember England, the United States was there, in Pakistan, in India, all those countries growing the poppy. So the United States just took it back up in the Afghan War. So they went into Afghan for a number of reasons. One, you could spy on all of the Asian countries. Two, you got a massive abundance of heroin that you use to keep your banks going. You got vast amounts of lithium, oil. They're there for that. That's why the gun is so important. That's why the United States, after World War II, is a military country, and all your money is going to go to fight these damn wars. The United States has never stopped fighting. You're in 4 wars now. Fifth Opium War, present. U.S. southern border, of Mexico with the fentanyl. I put that in there because that's what they say in the paper. But we know the heroin, the fentanyl is a substitute of the heroin. The loss of all that heroin poppy after the United States was kicked out of Afghanistan, then the fentanyl came out. We ended with Burkina Faso. I want to do a quick summary because we went through it. In this diagram, you study it, Burkina Faso, after getting rid of the French. Remember, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Nigeria. Before the three coups, before the three coups, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria. See the three countries, right? These are the three countries. The U.S. had the biggest surveillance in Nigeria. They could see the whole, and they use this to coordinate. The jihadists, after Gaddafi was killed, the weapons that they stole from Gaddafi, they split it into two parts. One into the Sahel, and the other went into the jihadists in Syria. Because they're trying to break the countries that they used to steal from. At the time, the first coup in 2020, no, we were in 220, and then 220 in Mali, and then followed by 223 in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, and 24, 20, 22, 24. The United States' largest surveillance was in Nigeria, was in Burkina Faso, was in Nigeria. The government of Nigeria, after they took out Bassoum, as we all know, they were selling uranium to the French for 80 cents a kilo, when that same uranium was selling on the global market for 200 US. They were selling it to France for 80 cents. But the biggest, one of the two biggest blows to the United States and Europe came from, what's the name, Niger. Why? Because they cut off the uranium. That uranium that they were stealing out of Nigeria, when you look at the statistics, the French was taking it, it's almost, you almost don't have to refine it. Most of the refining of uranium around the world, 80%, they ship to Russia to refine it. Because a lot of countries don't want the back contamination. But Nigeria's uranium is so pure, you almost don't have to refine it. So you're getting almost the best uranium, quality-wise, and you don't have to refine it. Then all you have to do is take it out of Nigeria, ship it down through Burkina Faso, and take it out of the port to the Gulf of Guinea. You can take it through Ghana, you can take it to Togo, and you can take it through Ghana, Togo. You can take it through Togo, Ghana, and no, the other one next to Ghana, Benin. So they took the uranium, and Nigeria probably took the money, I don't know. But this rich uranium could be taken out, taken through Nigeria. Most likely it did not go to Guinea, to Ghana. Most likely, the uranium they took it out to either Togo and Benin, both of them under France. But most likely, they took it out of Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire, because it borders. See, uranium is taken out. I'm good. The uranium is taken out of Niger, taken through Burkina Faso, because they were all under the French. And then taken out through Ivory Coast, because the president of Ivory Coast, I forgot his name, you can't get any worse than that. So they got all this rich uranium, they take it out of there, take it across Burkina Faso, take it out in the Gulf of Guinea, and the ships take it into the Atlantic. You bring it around, and you take it to the Mediterranean and offload it to France. That uranium, the Europeans stated that 1/3 of the entire electric grid for all of Western Europe came out of this country. That uranium that France took for nothing was providing 1/3 of the electricity to all of Western Europe. Most of what you call France's industry, the people, nuclear weapons, then France would produce electricity and ship it to Germany, ship it to whatever the capital of the European Union, ship it to Spain, Portugal, Germany. And guess what the Europeans are now saying? They're beginning to have blackouts. Industries beginning to shut down. The lights are going off. 1/3 of all the uranium, 1/3 of all of the electricity of Germany, France, Spain, and Portugal. And those are the 4 leading industrial countries of Europe. That's how profound it was. The loss of that uranium. So let's say they take the uranium out, they ship it in, because the Africans didn't know what they were doing. They did what they wanted, because when they made the coup, United States was here. The British job was to move the jihad people across the Sahara. You know how long the Sahara is? The Sahara, you take, who's on this end?
Sudan.
No, we're talking this west end. It's slipping me.
Mali.
No, damn it. Who's on this is with Faye. And I can't think of it. It's slipping.
Morocco.
No. You know it.
Mauritania.
It's Saul is the prime minister, and the other one is the president. They had to switch. I can't think of it. But
Tunis, Algeria, Morocco, Mauritania.
No. Okay, anyhow. So you come across Mali,
Chad,
Burkina Faso, and Chad, Senegal. From here to here, it's 5,000. From Niger all the way across the Sahara to there is equivalent to going from New York to California. So these jihadists can't move around. Where they get the motorcycles, the trucks, the oil, satellites and everything. So it's the U.S. provides the overall logistic. The British had the responsibility of moving the jihadists around by helicopter. And who else was in here? It was the UN was there. They kicked out the UN. The European Union was there. France was there. And UK. So you had a combination of Americans looking around, the British here, and the French and Americans provided all of the weapons and everything. in the mission, when we were in the UN, in their mission, they told us this, we knew it. We're in the Mali mission. They told us what's going on, we know. So when they got rid of this base, the spy base, and they got rid of it, the whole logistics of the jihadists went down. So now that they cut off the uranium, France has to now go to Canada or Kazakhstan. You know how wrong it is? If you want to steal uranium here and you can get it through Ivory Coast and into Guinea, you say it takes 2 days. I don't know. 2 days. You know how long it takes you to ship from Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan is behind Russia. That uranium from Kazakhstan and Canada has to be refined. So you now have to buy the damn uranium that you were getting for 80 cents. You got to buy it for $2. Then you got to get the shipment from Canada or Kazakhstan, get it into Russia. So you used to get the highest grade uranium in 2 or 3 days. Now it costs you 2 months. Uncomfortable, and they're going broke. That's how important the Sahel nation, just that alone, was to them. So, okay, let's run through this very quickly. You see all these countries? You can look through it. The most important, two of the most important things is when the ECOWAS had cut off access to the Sahel nation to the Guinea, with Togo, Benin, initially, Togo, Benin, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, Ghana, and Ivory Coast, and Guinea, they all locked the border down. They denied them. They all work in unison, no longer Ghana. So what Morocco did, Morocco said to these countries, we'll work with you to develop it. So things are developing it. So I'm going to read you here and here the two most important things. What Benin is doing, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and one of the others, they're working with Russia for a number of projects to get many, M-I-N-I, small nuclear reactors that they're going to connect. They're putting up a whole new electric grid. They connected all three of the countries, the railroad, the electricity. And so as they're rebuilding the electrical grid, you can connect these portable nuclear reactors. You know, when these nuclear reactors, they say they can put in the submarines and ship, and they don't have to, and they'll last for 10 years. So they're building up the infrastructure. So that is important here. Now I'm just going to read this last portion, and then we are concluding this part. Burkina Faso, give you an idea. First, they don't borrow from Western banks. They have enough gold and uranium and oil, they borrow. Okay. Burkina Faso projects. First you had to get rid of the French and Americans, clear them out. Then you had to get assistance from Russia, China, Iran, the rest of them to help you to put your military together to protect yourself. Then after you do that, now you have Russia, China, and all these countries make it to industrialize the country. And that's where they are at this point. Burkina Faso, International Airport, road system update and created. Simindini Dam construction reservoir, irrigation and rural development, land reclamation, hydroelectric energy, solar farm, nuclear plants, they're going to get the nuclear plants, electrification, industrialization, government agencies, resource agencies, restructure foreign companies, etc. Value-added structure, job creation, education, skilled labor, blah, blah, blah. So let me put it to you this way, and I'll end on this. The United States and Western Europe had what they call it industrial, No, they call it the Industrial Revolution. Only came after they took Africans out with the glass making and machines and farming stuff. So the Industrial Revolution that gave Europe, remember, much of the technology that Europe got, they got out of Egypt. They got out of Carthage when they were raiding through Africa. You go to the Egyptian Museum, Mother can tell you, you'll see we work glass, we work wood, we work everything. Every modern building you see, you can find where it came from. So there's no doubt that the technology comes from Africa, whatever the way you got it, whether the Romans took it, and whether the United States and the rest of them took it. So the technology that the United States and Europe, it came out of Africa, where they started out apart, came from Egypt, and then it came from Carthage, and it came from Ghana and the rest of it. Africa's been around thousands and thousands of years. So almost anything you make now or see, you can point to where Africa had wheels in it. They smelted enough to smelt iron and wheels and glass and everything. So the United States gets the Industrial Revolution in Europe. They get it primarily out of Africa. That is now used out of Africa from those ancient times. After World War I, the Europeans, let's shorten this up quickly. The Europeans have been stealing from Africa 8 things that Africa provides to Europe and China, of which you can't survive. Gas and oil, wood and coal, things that provide heat. Food, fertilizer, minerals, and uranium. That's what they've been stealing out of Africa. Now, the Africans are beginning to cut them off. So let me just say there's one other federation that exists now in Russia, in Africa. These 3 countries federated, right? Put themselves together as a unit. Why did the United States colonists wanted to federate into the United States? Fight off the indigenous people, to fight off the British who were soaking them. So they had to pull together to confederate to better survive. And the 2 most important aspects of industry in the United States, up to the Industrial Revolution. One was security. Security against the indigenous people and security against the British. And the second most important thing about the revolution, up to most of the time, was the economy. What was the economy of the United States of America? Agriculture, right? Besides the invention, who provided the skilled and unskilled labor to the economy of the 13 colonies? Africans. Okay? As Dr. McIntosh said, stolen land, stolen people. And that's what they always hide. They don't talk about the history, and they don't talk about themselves. They just do smear campaign. Now, if Russia could industrialize, some of you can industrialize China from 1939 to 1970, put back the railroad, everything. And then the United States and the Europeans decided to make money. So all of that industrial capacity, the technology that the United States had after World War II, they transferred it to China for what? Cheap labor, markets, and massive profits. So the United States is saying, China's ahead of us, we gotta stop them. Did you ever tell American people where they got the technology that you damn white man, you businessman, you whoever the hell you call yourself, you took all that technology that had accumulated in the United States after World War II, most of it invented by an African here, a lot of it stolen from Africa. You had the access of it. The rest of the world had But because of World War II, I and II, most of the industrial world, whether it was China, whether it was Japan, Russia, England, France, Germany, all of them were bigger than the United States. But you came out of this on top industrially from getting all of this to become the dominant industrial power and military power by default. What makes these white people think that it was going to last forever and you just got it after 1940? So United States, government, president, and let's face it, the people who run the United States of America, the general, Smedley Butler told you, and in the second article, the scholars from the university in the United States documented that 90% and more of everything passed in this country benefits a handful, and the hell with the rest of them. So I'm not telling you anything new. That's the way this country is run. The same way what do you think they're fighting so much with tariffs? The Europeans were able to go around the world, trade, build and eat good. They never had it so good, and they're going to lose it because they're going down. They never invented it. They got the land by default. They got the people by default. You got the technology by default. And because you don't have the culture to perpetuate, to be longevity like the Chinese were, or the Persians were, or the Egyptians, or any of the African different dynasties and areas that existed for hundreds and hundreds of years, all over. They had the technology, they kept it. The United States sold it all out for some quick money. That's the problem even at this point. They don't tell American people that. And who's making the decisions? Good old people like Trump. And ask the background. What background do you have from Europe to run an industrialized country? What background do any of them have? They didn't have it. We had it as Africans and others in China. You had thousands and thousands of years of making things, of living, and they came into power less than 200 years ago by mass murder and theft. And the culture didn't allow them to do it. They had one of their best politicians called Kane Kennedy. He told the white Americans, he's white, 40 or 50 years ago, if you, the United States, want to stay competitive, because he could see what's coming, use the best of the minds that you have in the country. Hell no, we using white kids, white men, boys, the rest of them. So you don't utilize the skill you have here. You're ready to bring in foreign doctors, foreign nurses, and foreign everybody, then to educate your African population here, and even your own white kids. And I'm going to end by saying, what are you talking about? We'll go back to 2017 report by the Pentagon of the State of the United States of America, who said that 71% of all young people in the United States, I didn't get the breakdown of the racial part, 71% of all young people in the United States was ineligible for military service because of a criminal record, because of no high school diploma, and because of poor health. So who running this country that bring the art? Not the African, not women, white men. White Anglo-Saxon men. Call themselves whatever religion you want to call. That's who's responsible for what you see at this juncture in the United States of America. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, give stop the great big hand on the killing and murdering of this country that we belong to. Are there any questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. If you have anything you want to ask Doc, say it. Ask him.
First, from the floor. Anybody from the floor want to say something to Dr. Lewis? Question? Munderson?
Yeah, I want to disagree with you, my brother, because Maduro's hands are not clean, okay? Right now, he's getting ready to invade my country and take half of it. Why? Because they got oil. But he's had a pension.
What country are you talking about?
No,
He has a
be
pension.
specific about the country so they know what you're talking about.
Guyana.
Okay.
Okay, so say they want to control half of Guyana. There was a treaty made in 1896 among the British and the Spanish, and the borders were established. And he uses this ever so often as a threat of invasion. One of the reasons why there is military activity in the Caribbean is because of the oil. Okay, America, Britain wants the oil, so they are prepared to fight here. But I'm saying that his hands are not clean because he has a sort of chemicals against the Guyanese people. Okay, he wants half of the country, and he's not gonna get it.
Let me, anybody want to reply to it? You got, if anything you want to say, just reply to it so we can have a discussion. Say it.
Well, Venezuela, besides having oil themselves, Venezuela and Guyana had a little treaty after that. The land, they had this land, some of the oil. Guyana sold off so much of the property, they've been selling it throughout the Caribbean. I got some people that have land in Guyana, they sold off so much of that. And now they're saying, oh no. But the U.S. is promoting a fight so that while they're fighting, the U.S. will end up with both because Trump already said Venezuela is his island and he wants there as well. So divide and conquer. As long as you're fighting, they always end up taking what they can. So they both need to be
That's
careful.
not the same way. When we're talking about Chavez said, look, we don't want no part of Guyana. Okay? They had owed them some monies and he forgave the monies that they owed Venezuela. But this guy, he covets the oil. Much of the oil that Guyana has, some of it is in the region, but much of it is offshore. Okay? And he has a strong military. So, but the problem there also is that he's reading the newspapers of how the Indians are victimizing the Africans. So he thinks that this is the right time to do whatever he wants to do. In his claims against Guyana, the World Court said that there's no such, that you cannot change borders through force. And this is what's happening in Ukraine and those other places where invasion might seem to be taking right. And I would say that those hands are not clean.
Okay, let me ask a question. I don't take sides in this issue. Let me ask Munderson. Has Venezuela, so everybody can hear, have they invaded Guyana?
There are skirmishes on the border between the two countries,
Okay.
ongoing.
But I understand that. Have they invaded Guyana?
Invasion is not necessarily physical troops on the ground, okay? But threats and intimidation and the potential is an issue.
Okay, I understand that. So, for the audience, so that they'll get a clearer picture. Venezuela has not formally or informally invaded Guyana, correct?
That is irrelevant. They maintain a claim.
Okay, wait a second, wait.
They maintain a claim, and it's only a matter of time before they act on their claim.
Okay,
When
wait.
the claim is illegal.
Munderson, all we asked the question was, let's listen to it. All we asked, because I'm on the forum, so we all bounce each other. let everybody be clear. I asked the question, and I'm not to, has Venezuela invaded Guyana? The answer is no. Now, is there a possibility, because you're from the country, that Russia, China, Iran, Brazil, could the South Americans get together? Let's exclude Russia, China, and the rest. Leave all foreigners out. Do you think a meeting of the countries of Central, South America, or whatever group of countries you want, could they sit down with Venezuela and Guyana and begin to work things out?
There's no working out.
Okay, wait a second, let me just back up. Venezuela has no right, according to international law, to invade Guyana at this point,
I
correct?
say they say change borders to force.
Wait. So that I'm clear in my mind, I could be wrong. I don't know if anybody else is clear in mind. From my understanding, Venezuela has not invaded Guyana. No. United States, according to what you call the
Surrounded Venezuela.
United States invades countries and destroys.
Exactly.
That's invasion. And they do it because they can. Now, I'm not saying Guyana or Venezuela is, I'm a little familiar with it. And the way I see it, if you were to ask me how would I try to resolve it, I would ask Venezuela and Guyana to look to the countries that live in the area. They should get together and say, look, we got Central American countries, South American countries, and even Caribbean countries. We are big, 700 million people live in Central and South America. Fabulous resources. Why now take a continent which is now beginning to gel and get over the United States? Why not sit down and try to work it out? And what I believe may be happening is if the Central, it's just like the treaty that I alluded to, but she gave the name. You have treaties that say we don't make war with each other. Let's sit down. Central and South America has different organizations. They can sit down to work it out.
Sure.
Would you expect that?
Sir, this is not a yesterday or tomorrow's issue, right? All that the Venezuelan president has to say is that I renounce any claim to Guyana territory. He's not going to say that. You can sit down as much as you want till you get 6 hours.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Wait a second, let me ask you a question.
Right here.
When were those borders drawn and who authenticated the borders that we now have?
There was a treaty made in 1896.
By whom? Between what two countries?
By the colonial powers.
Now you come into
Okay.
it. Wait.
So,
The people who presently
the
run
colonial
Guyana.
powers were Spain and Britain. And they agreed on the borders.
But now they're gone. Now we got two new
So now
entities.
now because they're gone, you're gonna make a claim. It's an everyday occurrence.
No, listen, wait a second. That's the major international shift is shifting away from those old colonial rules and stuff, and now the Asians, the Africans, the Central, they're now blocking together to do it differently. You know what Russia, China say about Venezuela and Iran and North Korea? Same with Burkina Faso. Russia, China, North Korea said anybody who steps foot to do anything against Burkina Faso or any African country, we're coming in. Now wait, let me finish
South
now.
America.
Do you know how much that has deterred the United States? Then you know why the United States most likely won't invade Venezuela? Because they're going to lose. Now, with Venezuela, I know the dispute. When Venezuela says, to me, I don't think they want invasion. They want to sit down. The hell with that old treaty. That treaty don't mean a damn thing. It's dead.
They always
Now,
break treaties.
who made the treaty for their own thing? Why can't Venezuela and Guyana sit down and work out? Now, Venezuela, I'm pretty sure they can pull out this thing and say, we have maps to show for us. Their land is in dispute. Most of the African countries don't do borders. Nigeria. Tell me that, not you personally. Tell me, I heard somebody make some absurd. The Ghanaians are different from the Burkina Fasos and Nigeria. You tell me what the hell is the difference?
But the borders in Africa are holy.
What they don't you mean
Now,
holy?
now you made a point, my good doctor. You made a point, you mentioned in Nigeria. What did Nigerians said to Maduro? You invade Guyana, we put $1 billion men in Venezuela and you will pay for their maintenance.
Okay, why does Nigeria have anything to say? Wait a second.
Because
Nigeria?
yeah.
What? Okay, wait now. Why is Nigeria going to deal with a country when they take the northern half of their country and totally neglect it? Why? Why? I mean, I'm not saying anything about Nigeria. I'm an African, and I have a right like everybody. How
Because
is
Africans are oppressed in Guyana.
Wait a second. Nigeria, through their wars, I mean, the northern half of Nigeria is totally forgotten. In poverty. They don't even protect it. And they're going to worry about a
Guyana.
land dispute with Ghana and the rest of them? Are you kidding?
They're all strange manifests.
Are there any,
No.
are there,
Let me make a point.
Okay, make a point.
What Russia, China, Iran, these Asian blocs are hooking up with the African blocs, are saying we want a new world. We want a world where we work out our conflict, not a world where, because I have a bigger gun. That's the United States and the European. That United States and the European is that what they have done. I want this, I steal. I believe that this is not mine. I believe that the reason Venezuela did not invade, first of all, they don't need the oil. That's number one. Second of all, they didn't invade. Why? Why the hell you want to invade a country? For what reason? Why? No reason.
It's not that they did not invade. There's too much of a cost for invasion.
That's good. Regardless of the reason, they didn't invade. That's good.
That's academic.
No, it isn't.
It is academic because they got soldiers armed underwater.
They used to
They got tanks.
Yeah, but Munderson, you're supposed to put troops on your border to protect each other. Both of them have a legitimate complaint. How you going to solve it?
This issue, on this particular issue, my good brother, you're wrong.
I'll just ask you a question. How you going to resolve it? You tell me.
You may hear that they've crossed the border, okay?
Okay, how long they have
Murphy's
this?
Law. Murphy's Law says, you know what Murphy's Law says. It can happen quick, okay? This guy wants to invade Guyana because he wants half of the country. Why? Because most of the mineral resources are in that half of the country. And because Guyana is not as strong a military country as Venezuela.
In other words, what we need to at least agree. Venezuela may not want to invade because maybe they don't want to act like the United States. Maybe not. Maybe they don't need the oil, and maybe they can legitimately sit.
Those are too many maybes. All I have to say is we renounce any claim.
Why?
We renounce any claim.
What if they have a legitimate complaint?
Okay, so if they do not renounce a claim, it means that they have a claim and they may act on their claim.
Who made the borders?
The what?
Who made these borders?
That's
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the Zoom audience for Dr. Lewis? Hold on. Zoom audience, are there any questions from the Zoom audience for Dr. Lewis? Okay. Lady B, ask your question. Lady B, ask your question. Not his question. Your question. That's just a little something between
From everything.
two
that you
people
have
having a
said.
little discussion and they don't agree. Ain't no big deal.
Right, from everything you've said, who would benefit most if Guyana and Venezuela had a war?
To give the subtext, United States is in there, as you said. They want to develop, and they want the conflict. Before United States was in there, this border dispute is over 100 years ago. You got all kinds of border disputes. Okay? What Russia and them are trying to do is say, let us all work together, and when you have a border dispute, let's work it out. No. United States don't want to work it out. They want the gun. Venezuela has the capability to invade Guyana. Why? You're going to lose troops. You're going to lose your good grace. Why you want it? There's no reason. That's why they haven't done it yet. And I'm pretty sure, I'm just talking. Russia and China made a declaration. They sent a declaration to the world, especially the non-white world. Anybody who's attacked unjustly, we're going to come to their aid. That's their declaration. See, because if you don't keep up with that.
Exactly.
You think Russia and China and Iran said, this country is so damn big, so wealthy. Why do you need to bother a smaller country? You know that's a dispute. They haven't invaded. There's no reason to invade it. Why? Because you don't want to resolve it peacefully, and you don't want to admit it that some foreigners, some white foreigners, when they were cutting up everything, when I get an opportunity, when we go through the United States War of Independence, United States went to, Benjamin Franklin. He and two other delegates went to Paris, and they made two agreements with the French. The first was a military agreement to help each other to fight the war.
Right.
And then the second agreement, they call it the amity, A-M-I-T. You know what the agreement was? They agreed to each other that whatever land they want to conquer, long as we don't bump heads. That's what was happening here. So you let the two foreign people do what? Get you into a fight for what? Because like you say, United States want the war. They want to invest, and they want it to keep on going. The other countries are trying to do what you can.
And it's the USA's propaganda and media. Right now, Venezuela is in Trinidad, prostituting and so forth. They're doing all these things because America threatened to invade them. They've been there for 2 years. So where's the threat? You know what I'm saying? It's to destabilize any country that they are not ruling. And they claim South America, and they teach us this in school. South America, more or less, is like under the U.S. As long as the U.S. is together, they will invade every country. It benefits them. So keep the people fighting, and they will steal the resources. They did it in Africa. That's what they're trying to do there. They've already been doing it. They're just more so. Right now, you're saying that you're being threatened, but Venezuela is surrounded with military planes, military boats, and so forth. Not Guyana.
Okay.
It's not as easy
All right.
as you think.
Okay, we have two differences of opinion. We will continue with the historical context. And so I want everybody to give Dr. Lewis a great big hand. I want the Zoom audience to give yourself a great big hand. When Dr. Lewis comes back with the next part, He will get into more in depth on the conflict with Guyana and Venezuela. And when Dr. Munderson speaks, he will give his part when he do his lecture. So give him a great big hand. I'm going to cut the video off, Zoom audience. You can have a conversation, what you want. And thank you very much from the back. Oh, one question.
The announcement.
Ladies and gentlemen, if anybody in the tri-state, Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn area, Bronx, on the second Sunday, the UNIA brings people to the Rock in Queens. They leave from Restoration at 12 o'clock. You can contact myself, Brother Raymond, but we take people to the store so you can see all the bargains they have there, the seasonings straight from the Caribbean, the Africa, the herbs, everything, the fish, everything. So they leave second Sunday, they leave Restoration, and you can go out and do your part to support the UNIA and the Rock store. So give big up to the UNIA, Brother Raymond, and thank you very much. I'm going to cut it off and you can conversate. Thank you.